welcome to another insightful episode of African Monitor. This is where I aim to get you acquainted with the happenings in and around the continent of Africa, from the good, the bad and the ugly, to the weird, the tragic and the downright bizarre. I bring it all to you with a dash of humor and jocularity. My name is Chioma Innocent. Welcome to African Monitor. On today's episode of African Monitor, we begin with story bits of happenings around different African regions. The confirmation of charges hearing in the case of Central African Republic CAR war crime suspect Maxine Mokom at the International Criminal Court ICC has begun. The purpose of the hearing, which will continue until Thursday, is to establish if there are enough grounds to escalate the case to a trial. Mr. Mokom is accused of several crimes according to the ICC website, including directing attacks against civilians under the anti-Balaka militant movement. He has denied any crime and said he joined the group for the sake of peace and not war. Now, many parts of Tanzania are likely to experience power cuts due to a system error. The East African nation state power firm TANESCO has warned. An error in a gas-fired power plant has resulted in a loss of 268 megawatts to the transmission system. The statement said the efforts to fix the problem are ongoing and customers will be notified every 4 hours as the power availability improves. Tanzania's power generation capacity stood at 1,500 megawatts from various sources in 2021. This loss will lead to a lack of electricity at different times across the country. Now, we do hope that this can be resolved very soon so that light can return to Tanzania. Now, let's move on to Kenya, where the country's Faith Kipyegon has become the first woman to win a third women's 1,500 meters title at the World Athletics Championships. The two-times Olympic champion led the race from the start to finish and recorded the time of 3 minutes 54.87 seconds. This is a really another outstanding achievement in a remarkable season, which has seen the Kenyan set 3 whooping world records. Kipyegon is hailed as the world's best ever runner over 1,500 meters and remains unbeaten in the discipline since June 2021. Now, Kenya's President William Ruto has congratulated her as a peerless, a legend, and a once-in-a-generation talent. Now, on this note, I actually agree with President Ruto. Moving on, the African Union has warned against any interference in Niger Republic by those outside Africa, including private military companies. This followed a video by Ragnar chief Yevgeny Prigozhin, who claimed to be in Africa. The statement from the AU saying it was suspending Niger as a member was dated August 14, but it was only released on August 22 after the Wagner boss had published this video. Now, West Africa's regional bloc, the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, has said it will send armed forces into Niger to reinstate the democratically elected government. Western allies of Niger's deposed President Mohamed Bazoum fear that the Russian mercenary group, which has been accused of grave human rights abuses, could use this crisis to strengthen its presence in the Sahel, which has become the epicenter of Islamic insurgent violence. Western and regional forces have struggled to contain the growth of groups affiliated with Islamic State and Al-Qaeda, leading to increased attacks on civilians. Zimbabweans are voting in presidential and parliamentary elections after a campaign dominated by the country's soaring case of inflation. The day has been declared a holiday to allow the 6.62 million registered voters a chance to cast a ballot. President Emerson Mnangagwa faces 10 challengers, including Nelson Chamisa of the main opposition Citizens Coalition for Change, CCC. A presidential candidate needs more than 50% of the votes cast by the electorate to win this election. If there is no outright winner, a presidential runoff will be held in 6 weeks, falling on October the 2nd. This is the first election since the death of former President Robert Mugabe, the man who dominated Zimbabwe's politics and the ruling ZANU-PF party for decades. He died in 2019, nearly 2 years after he was ousted in a military takeover and replaced by his deputy, now President Mnangagwa. Polling stations opened at 7 a.m. local time, and electorates are also choosing local councillors. Ahead of voting day, election officials were setting up polling stations in the capital, Harare, and removing political posters that were in proximity to comply with the electoral laws. Police have been deployed around the country to maintain peace and order, and the numbers will be bolstered by prison officers, according to Police Chief Godwin Matanga. He maintained the pre-election period had been largely peaceful, despite some skirmishes. However, opposition parties say a disproportionate number of their rallies were banned by police or disrupted by the police. In fact, one CCC supporter was killed in violence earlier in the month. Our police have arrested 15 suspects in connection with the case. The Zimbabwe Electoral Commission, ZEC, has warned people not to wear nail varnish or nail extensions on their left pinky finger, which will be marked with indelible ink after voting to show that an electorate has actually cast their vote. Monitoring groups have raised issues about alleged anomalies on the voters' roll, saying some names have been moved from their usual place of voting to other areas. There has also been widespread criticism about last-minute boundary changes, meaning that some voters may not even know their assigned polling station has changed. Now, President Mnangagwa, who is seeking a second term in office, is anxious to get an international stamp of approval for the vote so Zimbabwe's foreign debts can be restructured and potentially open up fresh lines of credit, which were frozen more than 20 years ago. He has continually struggled to contain roller coaster inflation, which was in the single digits in late 2017. The country's annual inflation reached 176% in June this year, with figures out this week showing it has dipped to 77.2% from 101.3% in July. ZANU-PF party did not produce a manifesto. Wow, saying the president's work speaks for itself with a boom in mining and big investment in infrastructure. But the CCC says ordinary people have not benefited, with 1 in 4 Zimbabweans out of regular jobs. Opposition politician Mr. Chamisa says he plans to scrap the volatile local currency if he wins, and we're looking to see what will be the outcome of the Zimbabwean elections. Moving forward, heavy clashes continue around a strategic army base in the Sudanese capital, Khartoum, as the Sudan Armed Forces, SAF, and the Paramilitary Rapid Support Forces, RSF, fight amid raging conflict. The army said in a statement posted on its Facebook page on Tuesday night that it repelled yet another attack by the RSF fighters on the Armored Corps military base in the Al-Shajara area south of Khartoum, and inflicted heavy losses on the paramilitary force. For its part, the RSF has claimed to take control of parts of the base and also captured large quantities of weaponry. In a statement it shared on Tuesday night on social media platform X, formerly known as Twitter, Saudi-funded Al Arabiya television website reported that the army was still in control of the base after 3 days of heavy fighting. Fighting between the two forces has intensified in recent days in the capital Khartoum and the adjacent cities of Omdurman and Bari, as well as parts of the conflict-hit western region of Darfur. According to the United Nations, thousands of people have been killed and more than 4 million others displaced since the conflict broke out in mid-April. And finally, Mali's sports ministry has asked the World Sports Governing Body, FIFA, to look into the electoral process of the country's football federation, FEMAFOOT, warning of potential disturbances to public order. A poll next week will choose a new president for the organization, but the ministry says several candidates have questioned FEMAFOOT's screening procedure after being excluded. Incumbent Mamutu Toure is currently behind bars, having been held in a pre-trial detention since August 9th by the country's anti-graft agency over allegations of misappropriation of public funds. Despite the situation, Toure is expected to be unchallenged in the presidential race for FEMAFOOT. In a letter addressed to FIFA's outgoing Secretary General Fatima Samura, the ministry says it wants to establish a climate of trust in Mali after FEMAFOOT's Electoral Commission ruled out 3 candidates, that is, Salaha Baby, Amadou Mohamed Sango and Sekou Diogo Keita. Baby has already appealed the decision at the Court of Arbitration for Sport. The ministry wrote to Senegalese Samura, explaining that those excluded have identified specific points of violation of the rules which are likely to call into question the whole process. The letter goes on to say that the ministry cannot accept that the proper functioning of football in Mali is damaged before warning of splits in the population between different regions of the country and even possible disturbances to public order. The letter concluded by asking the world football's governing body FIFA to act with real urgency and to take an interest in the current process so that it takes place in strict compliance with the rules. The arrest of 66-year-old Toure, who has been FEMAFOOT president since August 2019, has cast shadows of doubt over the upcoming elections for new executives. A member of FIFA's powerful executive council, the corruption allegations against Toure centers around his time as administrative and financial director of Mali's National Assembly between 2013 and 2019, before he took charge of FEMAFOOT. Also currently in custody on charges of offences against public property, forgery and complicity are FEMAFOOT's General Secretary Modibo Sidibe and Isiaka Sidibe, a former president of Mali Premier League club AS Real de Bamako. Mali's sports ministry is urging FIFA to act in order to avoid government interference. FIFA rules outlaw state involvement with national football authorities, and it has previously banned several African nations, including Mali and most recently Zimbabwe and Kenya, for doing so. And that is all we can take on African Monitor today. Be sure to join us next time for more exciting and enlightening episodes. You can find us on YouTube. It is a Voice of the People Television. Also follow our social media platforms at VOP TV Live. Until next time, my name is Chioma Innocent. Keep watching VOP Television.